Hello, welcome. It's day 7 of the 17 days of quantum. We've been through a number of different topics so far, and look, the very nature of this is to share a resonance, an insight into what the quantum movement is all about, to what we stand for, the principles, and we're wanting to, collaborate and engage with people who want to take complete responsibility in their life and, move beyond ideas of pain, suffering, sacrifice, and create life not from a conversation, not from a wish and a hope, not from a random process that is triggered by emotional pain or physical pain, but people who make decisions in their lives from fertile grounds that want to move past the tragedies of life. So I've got a lot of personal messages that have come from doing these posts, but I encourage you to comment, to share here, because what you're sharing and what I've been receiving privately is of great significance to other people, and I think it's important to have a voice and to stand in your truth. So I encourage you just to share your feelings, what is it's coming up. Today's topic is about embracing pain. Now, it's one of the things that becomes most challenging for a lot of people, because when we see someone in pain, we obviously at times go into a state of sympathy. We become very empathetic to someone who's suffering, and we want to help, we want to assist in so many ways. We see someone with a terminal diagnosis, and we feel the horror and the tragedy and the trauma that does come with that. Pain is something that shapes our life, and sadly it becomes and has become the main reason why people become stimulated to move forward in their life. It's to understand that pain is a physical experience. And when we're engaged at a physical experience, we're using very low levels of thinking, and it's actually thinking rather than awareness. We're activating the mind. We're digging into the past. Pain is the representation of what we do not understand in our life. The only reason we receive pain at any particular point is because of our misunderstanding of what we truly are. For many of us, we've become caught up in this nature of who we are. And who just relates to what we are in comparison to everyone else, and who only exists because of everyone else. It's the what. It's having the audacity, the confidence, and even possibly the arrogance to ask yourself what you are and be able to listen to that, to truly understand the greater capacities, not the splinter that we've come to accept of our own true self, not the separated parts of what we've come to accept about our own true self. Embracing the fullness of what we are allows us to recognize the responsibility that we have. I can suggest to you that most of us, as we're saying, are stimulated by pain. So pain becomes a required aspect of life in order to move forward, because we've become habitual in waiting until something is dire in its consequence, extremely painful, before we decide to interrupt or change our current situation. The sad thing is that we find ourselves in a life where we have more and more pain. And I want to share an experience and something you can maybe observe in your own life. And I hope this relates, and I hope it helps and gives you some freedom away from pain. So I want you to consider that in your life, you're currently confronted with a complete state of busyness, where every bit of time you have is dedicated to a list of what to do that you just don't have time to ever get to the end of. I want you to consider yourself in that particular space, and imagine on your doorstep comes an old friend, someone who's very dear to you, someone you haven't seen for a long time, but brings to you such a joy. And if we all have that in our life, and it might be a child, but when that particular person turns up on your door, it is that significant and embracing of you at that particular moment that you put off everything that you have. You find a way to stop and spend a valuable amount of time, maybe 3 days whilst they're there, to engage in and do whatever it may be in your life. You find a way. And the thing is, when we embrace that, our life becomes enriched and we become very present and aware, and we embrace all of it. We welcome in. There's no restrictions to what we're doing. And ultimately what occurs is that experience in our concept of time goes quickly. And the pleasure comes and it goes. Now, it's only pleasurable because we decide it to be, because we've embraced it, because we've engaged in it and become full, present in that moment. Now, I want you to consider the opposite of this and recognize how we bring and maintain pain in our lives and experience of our stories that we live through. If someone was to turn up at your door that wasn't the person that brought you great pleasure, joy, excitement, enough to cancel what was most important, but they were to stay with you for 3 days as well, I want you to consider how long that 3 days would take. I want you to consider how painful it may become, how many problems may arise as you continue to resist and not want to be present in that very situation. And the pain elevates. The time ticks forever. And the very nature of us not recognizing our ability to learn from what it is that's right in front of us at each particular moment, when it's not in the package that we're wanting. When something that we perceive at first glance is not there to support us, that challenges us, that is different to us, that triggers us in some way. It's in the embracing of that we embrace our own darkness, that we really grow. We don't grow from the pleasure. That is a part of the reward of our own life, and it's always available. But we never grow if we never embrace the pain, if we never allow ourselves to see our own capacity to rise above the situation that we've been presented with. I'm sure for each of you that when you spend enough time in your heart with someone who you find repulsive, you will come to love them, you will come to appreciate them for what they are, which might be very difficult when you look around some of the people that you hold such judgment on. This is all about misunderstanding. This is all about, in our own life, and all of the emotional, the deep trauma, the pains that are held by people for no reason at all except to not understand the other person's perspective, to not understand what it is that they mean. Instead, to overlay it with what we think it is, to enable us to continue to hold ourselves back, to sit in pain as an excuse not to step into and embrace the fullness of life, to suggest that we're not lucky, suggest that we're not intelligent enough, capable enough, beautiful enough to do so. These are stories that we tell ourselves, and in each particular moment, when we recognize, when we fully engage and embrace in a most difficult and challenging situation, we own that moment. We become that moment, and we are the very director of that moment. We don't wait. We don't hope that someone else will create something that we would love and then become judgmental when they don't. Our life exists not in pain, but for many of us, we've learnt to get love through pain. We've learnt that pain is something that we need to move through in order to have beauty in our lives. This is when we start living in a very physical reality. This is when we don't become in touch with the unknown within us, the what that exists within us. Whether you call that the God within, whether you call that a soul, whether you call it whatever, it's irrelevant. And I would suggest to you that you don't give it any name except for the what, because it becomes your relationship with it, not what someone else has predetermined or tries to hijack to tell you what you should be feeling and what you should be doing. It's about stepping into your own authority, not into what someone else has created. Yes, we can learn from that, but we're not defined by it. Look, we have a capacity that when we embrace it and we come to understand, and I believe this is one of the greatest challenges of education, and I wouldn't even call it education, the information that's been imparted upon people that we've invited and also accepted. We're responsible for it. But it is to show ourselves as a shadow of what we are. It is to believe that we need to heal things, that we need to fix things. There's nothing to fix. There's things to understand. And when we understand and we're present in this moment, we don't need to go trouncing back through our past. We don't need to talk into those moments. When we can engage in this moment, we need to learn to cradle the significance of what we are, to build a foundation, to build a structure around our own self that enables us to be able to be present to the power of what we have, to respect that, to honor that. And it's in the doing of that that we come to respect others, that we come together in a cohesive and significant way because we are fulfilled within ourselves. We are not looking for some outside source to do that. That the whole nature of the quantum movement is not about getting people together in a community. It's about people choosing to be together, but it's also about people coming to a state where they can celebrate their own way, where they can go beyond, where they're not requiring or needing of any support or assistance, because they become in communion and in conversation with themselves, through themselves, allowing themselves to be exposed to things that are confrontational, because they always know that the decision's going to come back to them in the trust that they can cultivate within their own relationship of themselves. And that's what everything is about. It's about your relationship with it. And if you don't like your relationship with it, you're the only one that can change that. There's a million different opportunities to think and perceive anything at any particular time when we're choosing to look at horror, when we're choosing to look at blame, when we're choosing to look at things that do not elevate. That is a choice. It's not a truth. You're determined by your truth by how you navigate your life. And I would say in all of my offerings is the only thing we need to learn is to navigate, to be unencumbered, to be free, and to set ourselves on our own journey, on our own path, and be an example for others. Share, like, comment. I'd love to hear what it is you got to say, but private messages are great, but personal messages, sharing with others, inspiring, become an example in your own self as we move towards our own launch. Until we meet again on the inside, enjoy you.